Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanee and Clarky visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Great. Yes.
Thank you, Dean.
How about yourself?
I'm very well, thank you.
You are very well.
Yeah. I have no news because we just broke for a very short time, but I put the aircon on and heated the room back up and now I've turned it back off. Yeah.
Nice. I started with a bit of chocolate in my mouth because, we're going nicer with the wine and got my story ready and we're good to go.
Ready to rock and roll. Right, well, I shall introduce us then. I'm Schmitty.
And I'm Clarky. I nearly said I was Swanee because I just missed her.
I was thinking it too. I was like, and
I
I'm
wish
Swanee.
she was here. Yeah. Anyway, and together we are Trial by Wine.
And what?
Hey, at least we can say that we're all drinking wine tonight.
We are. We're on brand. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And what are you drinking? You're still on the...
we are polishing off the Feathertop Pinot Noir / Point Noir.
Point Noir.
Yes, yourself, Dar.
I'm still on the HQ. Yep. So Shiraz.
Nice.
Beautiful. And I believe you have a story for me.
I do have a story, yes. I'm quite excited because now I can just pick stories that aren't relating to
wow, we're off
places
countries.
I've been. Yeah, we're off that. Of course, I did have grand plans of ending it all with a good Aussie crime, but I'm going to do this story instead.
Okay, all right.
So my sources are apnews.com, Wikipedia, pulitzercenter.org, nbcnews.com, abc.net.au, and businessinsider.com. And we're going back to the 24th of January 2023, so last year.
Not very far at all.
No, and that date for me is significant because it's so recent. And we're heading to Rankin County. Rankin County is a majority white county, and it's just east of the state capital, Jackson, home to one of the highest percentages of black residents of any major US city. A towering monument topped by a Confederate soldier stands across the street from the Rankin County Sheriff's Office. For most of its history, Rankin County was a rural area dominated by farmland and forests. That began to change when white flight reached the capital city of Jackson in the 1960s, and Rankin's fields gave way to subdivisions and strip malls. But tucked among the stately homes and manicured lawns, some of the country's most impoverished residents live in rundown trailers and makeshift shacks, a few without running water or electricity. These neighborhoods were hit hard in the early 2000s as meth, cheap, highly addictive, and easy to manufacture in isolated places, spread across rural America like wildfire. Local sheriffs, even in small departments, set up special narcotics units and joined state and federal task forces in the war on drugs. And we've discussed the war on drugs in previous episodes.
Drugs are bad, okay?
Yeah. Also, particularly bad for certain socioeconomic groups. The Rankin County Sheriff's Department responded by targeting low-income communities and policing them relentlessly, because it's all about the drugs, right?
I'm sure aren't that cheap, but anyway, I wouldn't know.
In an area called... Well, no, but I think the issue then becomes, the whole... What's that selling thing?
Pyramid selling?
But there was that particular brand.
Multi-level marketing?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar again. There was the...
Herbalife?
No, it's one of those, though. It was the original one.
I know what you mean, the cleaning product one?
Yeah. What was it called?
Amway.
Amway.
That's it, yeah.
Amway, that's it. So, like with drugs, they have a thing about, try this one for free to get you hooked. And then once you're hooked and you want more, then you've got to go and commit booze to get more. And, yeah. Which is why it's so bad for low-income people who can't afford it, although it's bad for everyone. In an area called Robin Hood, residents said home raids became routine and it felt as if they couldn't go to the corner store
But
without
they
being
weren't
stopped
stealing
and
from
searched.
the rich to give to the poor.
No, correct.
No.
So I don't know why it was called Robin
For the
Hood.
poor to give to themselves.
Maybe because they wished they had a Robin Hood. Once they start picking on you, said a former resident, Natasha Harris, they will not leave you alone. So that's a bit of a background on what Rankin County is like, and I guess, the link with drugs and whatnot. So on the 24th of January, Eddie Parker and Michael Jenkins are heading to their friend Kirsty Wally's apartment where they'd been staying. Kirsty was in hospital at the time. Parker was a childhood friend of Wally, and he had often cared for her since she became paralysed at the age of 15. For the two, everything was normal. Two friends returning to their third friend's home. Nothing to see here, or was there?
Mm-hmm.
To the racist eye, two black men had just exited an apartment of a white woman. Something had to be wrong. Was she in danger? Were they going to rob her, rape her, murder her? A concerned neighbour saw the whole thing being the two of them returning
Wanda.
home. And knew that something was amiss, but not Wanda. This is someone way worse than Wanda. So he phoned Rankin County Police Department to report that two black men were staying with a white woman inside a Braxton home. Outrageous. Now, as far as I'm aware, that's not a crime. You could understand if a policeman answered the phone with a little bit of frustration and said, stop wasting our time.
That's quite a good response, but no.
Yeah. Yes. And bearing in mind, this is 2023.
Yeah.
However, the call was taken by Deputy Brett McAlpin. McAlpin, just like the concerned neighbour who called him, could immediately understand the danger posed by two friends entering an apartment together, especially given that they were not the same colour as the person who lived there. And he understood the urgency required to respond accordingly. McAlpin told Deputy Christian Dedmond he texted a group of white deputies who would also understand what was required, and asked, "Are y'all available for a mission?"
Any black deputies in this sheriff's?
Not in this particular office.
A WhatsApp group, I know, but
No, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, but there was in a nearby county, there was a black deputy. I think he gets a mention later on. So yeah, he says, "Are y'all available for a mission?" And damn right they were. It was damn straight, because Dedmond had summoned the Goon Squad, a self-proclaimed title for a group of men who were willing to use excessive force and not report it. Now, I had to Google what goon means.
Yeah, I'm not a goon bag.
And I'll give you not a goon bag, and I will give you the first definition, which is the one I had in mind about the Goon Squad. So an informal definition of goon is a stupid, foolish, or eccentric person. Yeah. I don't want to deal with Jack today. He's such a goon.
Yeah, the goons. The English comedians, yeah. Spike Milligan and that, yeah.
A North American version is a violent, aggressive person who is hired to intimidate or harm people. He hired goons to hunt down supporters. And that's the definition that we're using. Or that they were using when they proclaimed themselves the Goon Squad.
They're a brute squad by another name. The Blue Squad. I am the Blue Squad. Yeah.
You can tell me about that later. There were 6 members of the Goon Squad: Christian Dedmond, Hunter Elwood, Brett McAlpin, Jeffrey Middleton, and Daniel Opdyke of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department.
Do that again?
And
you're coming to the 6th one.
Yes. And so there were 5 of them that were all part of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department.
Right.
And Joshua Hartfield, a Richland police officer. Okay. So the Goon Squad gathered and they attended the ranch-style home that Jenkins and Parker were staying at.
I thought it was an apartment.
So ranch-style home, yes, I read there were a couple of different reports on it. And give me a second, you'll get an example as to why it all sounds a bit odd. But so they turned up and they were careful to avoid a security camera that was pointing in part of this area. However, it also then went on to say they broke down the front door without a search warrant. Yes. But I also read in another article that the front door was made of carpet. So remember we're talking about a lower socioeconomic. So I've got this thing of an apartment, a ranch-style home, a security camera, a front door made of carpet.
Yeah, it's weird because a ranch-style home is like our ranch-style homes.
But it's probably more maybe I don't know.
A shanty made with a front door made of carpet.
Yes. They broke down the front door or kicked in the carpet.
Or just moved it to the side.
Yeah, brushed to the side quite easily. Without a search warrant and restrained Jenkins and Parker. The officers referred to the men with racial slurs and told them to go back to Jackson or their side of the Pearl River.
Oh, but you're sitting on my neck?
Similar. The deputies then beat and tasered the men. At one point, the deputies found a dildo in the home. Opdyke forced it into Parker's mouth and attempted to do the same to Jenkins.
Jesus.
Deadman threatened to rape the men and moved to Jenkins' backside, but stopped when he noticed Jenkins had defecated on himself.
Oh my God.
That's how worried he is.
Oh my God, this is, what's the film? Friends. Ding, 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 ding. I'll be saying screw like a pig. Oh my God.
So you can imagine the state of mind of...
Because he shot himself. I shit myself in that situation.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Elwood held the two men down while Deadman poured milk, alcohol, chocolate syrup, and cooking oil on them.
Oh, tar and feather.
Elwood also threw eggs at the men. The police beat the two men with a wooden plank and a sword.
Sad.
Then Elwood,
What's
I'm
going
assuming
on? There's a sword in the
not
house.
with the
There's a
sharp
dildo.
part of it.
What is in
I'm not
this
sure they're in the
house?
same room. In this ranch-style home with a carpet door.
With a girl who's been paralysed since she was 15. She's got a sword and a dildo in her house.
I mean, the dildo, come on.
And the sword even, but weird.
We all need to be touched, Gordy. Do you remember that from Fast Forward?
No, but I don't actually have an issue with the dildo. It's the sword.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from?
Maybe that was her. Maybe she didn't have a gun, so she wielded a sword.
Maybe. I'm going to say it was like a cosplay thing.
I mean, it could well be too, yes. Then Elwood forced Jenkins to his knees for a mock execution, intending to fire the gun without a bullet.
Oh, my God, no.
But it was loaded and discharged, cutting Jenkins' tongue, breaking his jaw, and exiting through his neck.
Oh, my God.
As Jenkins bled on the floor, none of the officers rendered medical aid. They knew they had gone too far.
Oh, you think?
And needed to devise a cover-up to explain the carnage.
Oh.
And the story went something like this. They had attended the home on suspicion of drug possession.
Oh, I feel
Elwood
sick.
brought Jenkins into a side room as part of the arrest and said Jenkins reached for a gun when he was released from handcuffs. To support their story, or to manufacture evidence, the deputies planted a gun and methamphetamine in the home and accused Jenkins of trying to shoot at officers. Deadman fired several gunshots into the yard. They also stole a hard drive from the home security system and threw it into a river. The deputies then had the two men shower to hide any evidence of abuse, with Hartfield guarding the door so they would not escape.
This man's face has been shot off and you're making him shower? Oh, for fuck's sake.
After the attack, Jenkins was subsequently charged with drug possession.
Taken to the hospital?
Based on the methamphetamine the officers had said they found in the raid. Luckily, these charges were later dropped. After the incident, McAlpin and Middleton made a promise. They would kill any of the officers who told the truth about what happened.
Jesus Christ.
And the other Goon squad members complied. Parker and Jenkins tried for months to tell their story, but often no one believed them. A case was brought to light through the determination of black lawyers for
squad,
justice.
they're a cunt squad. Putting that in because this is horrific. I can't think of a worse word to describe these people.
Yeah, but if anybody has any suggestions,
it's online at gmail.com. And I'm just getting these random emails with swear words. I'll be like, what's that about? Could you put in the subject line, please? Episode 147 reference. Otherwise, I'll just think you're swearing at me.
So that you don't take it personally. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So from early January, Black Lawyers for Justice advocated for the victims and worked with community activists in, I'm saying from early January. It can't have been that because this happened at the end of January.
Christ.
So, yeah, I know, right? This is last year.
I mean, I know that there's racial issues and there's racial issues in our own country. We also don't have a proliferation of guns. got the drugs for sure.
But this is the police doing it.
Yeah, but it's easy to say he had a gun and he shot at them because there are lots of guns everywhere, right?
But also the police are doing it.
No suggestion that we don't have corruption in our own police force as well. Too much.
Black Lawyers for Justice advocated for the victims and worked with community activists in Mississippi to bring the truth to light. They found that the Goon Squad were known in the community as the Rankin County Death Squad.
Oh, my God.
And that similar incidents had been occurring for a long time under the leadership of Sheriff Brian Bailey, who they believe should be the subject of criminal investigation also. Black Lawyers for Justice were persistent and advocated intensely collecting evidence and applying legal pressure to the US Justice Department. Eventually, the pressure mounted. Finally, on the 12th of April 2023, so, 2.5 months later, one of the Goon Squad members, Daniel Opdyke, turned over his phone to the federal government. And it revealed a group chat on WhatsApp.
I told us a WhatsApp group.
Yeah, you did. You absolutely did.
Called it.
Outlining the text messages that took place. These texts were imperative in getting the officers charged. Without the texts and the cooperation of Opdyke, the Goon Squad might still be abusing the people of Rankin County. So the Goon Squad members were arrested and each charged with conspiracy to commit obstruction of justice. Additionally, Dedman was charged with home invasion and Elwood was charged with home invasion and aggravated assault. McAlpin, Middleton, Opdyke and Hartfield each faced an additional charge of first obstruction of justice. They were also charged with 16 federal felonies, so a number of state and federal felonies. All 6 appeared with their attorneys in Rankin County Court, shackled at the wrists and wearing prison jumpsuits, undergoing a walk of shame as they were brought to justice. They pleaded guilty to all state and federal charges stemming from the torture and abuse of Jenkins and Parker. Elwood made an attempt to apologise to Parker and Jenkins before he left the courtroom, claiming he was haunted by visions of their faces that night.
Would the one who shot the guy in the face?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, fuck him.
I see you every night and I can't go back and do what's right, he told the victims. I'm so sorry for what I did.
Bullshit.
Parker accepted Elwood's expression of regret, while Jenkins brushed it off and said if Elwood hadn't been caught, he would still be doing the same thing. He's that.
Well, exactly. How many times before has he done it? This Goon Squad.
Called a death squad? Other crimes, but deaths are associated to this group of people.
Malik Shabazz, attorney for victims Michael Jenkins and Eddie Park, read their victim statements in court. So Michael Jenkins' victim statement: Your Honour, that killed me. I just didn't die. He also described how the actions of the former officers have affected his life. I am a musician and a singer.
Oh, God.
And now because of the gunshot wound that shattered my jaw, I can no longer do what I love.
His tongue off,
and
I'm
that's
sure.
sing. He said, adding that he sometimes wakes up at night covered in sweat due to nightmares about what happened. I'm broken inside and I don't think I'll ever be the person I was.
Oh, that poor man.
So Eddie Parker's victim statement: I never knew the ones that were sworn to protect and serve would be the ones that needed protection, that I needed protection from. The humiliation and embarrassment from the sexual assault is too great for me to talk about. Therefore, I'm in therapy now and for the future. So following the trial, they were subsequently sentenced to jail with terms ranging from 15 to 45 years.
Just to backtrack on that, earlier when you were telling the story about they were lining up to rape guys, one had defecated, assuming the other didn't, who just made that statement. Did they rape him?
So they had the dildo in his mouth. I don't think that they went further than that. I could be wrong, but I didn't see anything that suggested that they did do that.
They didn't get done for they didn't get done for rape or sodomy or sexual assault.
No,
they should have.
Yeah, we've discussed the way that the charges sometimes work, but they've got home invasion and aggravated assault.
Yeah, it might come under aggravated assault.
Yeah, possibly.
Added with a dildo.
Which, remember episode 1?
Yes,
when there was
Carl Newland,
there was charges of, I think it was aggravated assault.
Might have been, It's in the UK. So, different legal system.
Yeah. And very different situation. More complicated in that situation than this, where it seems a lot more cut and dry.
Yeah, exactly.
So all the state sentences are to run concurrently with their federal sentences. And so here's a summary of the charges. Brett McAlpin, state court sentenced him to 20 years after the federal court gave him 27 and a quarter years in prison. Jeffrey Middleton, state court sentenced him to 20 years after the federal court gave him 17 and a half years. Daniel Opdyke, state court sentenced him to 20 years after the federal court gave him 17 and a half years. Now, bearing in mind, he's the one who actually did come forth with the text messages. Christian Deadman, state years sentencing to 25 years after federal court gave him 40 years.
So was he the one who shot them? I know Deadman was the one who said, let's get together and...
No, Elwood was. So Hunter Elwood. So I'll read Deadman's again
Hunter.
Because...
I mean, what a name.
No.
Oh.
So Deadman, state court sentencing to 25 years after federal court gave him 40 years.
Yeah.
Hunter... Elwood, state court sentenced him to 45 years after the federal court gave him 20 years. So they're almost swapped.
It's really weird because the first one got less from the state than the feds gave him. The other one's got more from the state than the feds gave him. And this guy got double, nearly more.
And they're both almost on the magnitude of double. So 25 and 40 and 45 and 20. And then Joshua Hartfield, state court sentenced him to 15 years after the federal court gave him 10. Malik Shabazz, the lawyer, said the sentencing was significant, but added that he had still hoped for the former officers to receive more time. He noted that the judge departed from the initial recommendations of low prison sentences for the squad, and in doing so set a new standard here in Rankin County, that police brutality will not be tolerated in Rankin County.
Shouldn't be tolerated anywhere.
Right. But so remember I said that it was last year and it was significant. So I just wanted to read you this bit. So law enforcement misconduct in the US has come under increased scrutiny, largely focused on how black people are treated by the police. The 2020 killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis Police ignited calls for sweeping criminal justice reforms and a reassessment of American race relations. And the beating death of Ty Nichols by 5 black members of a special police squad in Memphis, Tennessee, led to a probe of similar units nationwide. So I'm shocked after all of that and what we've seen of all of that from Australia, that there's still this squad going around, even if they are, operating outside of the law.
It's Mississippi,
their own little group. Rankins County.
Mississippi?
Is it? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, you said Mississippi earlier, and I thought
Jackson, Mississippi would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I think those southern states still have significant racism issues.
Well, no, it just reminds me of, some of those. What's A Time to Kill?
I loved that film.
Some of those movies.
God. But that's exactly the point, and that was set somewhere in the deep south. But, I think we're naive that we think that this is all stuff that happened in the past. And,
100%.
the whole Black Lives Matter movement was about saying that this is not an ancient issue. This is a continued issue. And this police brutality, and it happens to white people too. Remember the Australian woman who was shot? A couple of years back, who just went outside to speak to the policeman who killed her.
Yeah,
I think it's there's a bit of it, and I know I talk about the gun crime and the proliferation of guns, but there's the thing about the police being, not in this case, but the police being terrified quite often as well about what they're going to encounter, because almost every time you go somewhere, someone could pull a gun and kill you. And so you're living under this extreme anxiety and fear of death all the time. Not these guys, though. These guys are acting quite outside of that. These guys are just going around victimising people.
Like 100%. They're doing what almost started the Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah, the Black Lives Matter movement started in 2013, from what I could gather. So it's 10 years old by this stage. Yeah. And we talk in this country now in terms of racism as, casual racism, and you look at what Meghan Markle talks about with what she's been through. But this is just full-on horrendous, cut and dry. Like, it's evil, and it's all based on racism. I was shocked by it.
Really?
So Sheriff Bailey said that he was lied to and only learned the truth when he read unsealed court documents. McAlpin and Elwood worked under Bailey for years and were sued several times for alleged misconduct whilst working for him, obviously. The sheriff said that the deputies violated existing body camera rules by not wearing them when in uniform. He promised to mandate body cameras be turned on with fewer exceptions and said he was open to more federal oversight. He also called the officers criminals, echoing federal prosecutors. So Bailey is basically saying he doesn't know anything about it. These people were doing it not whilst they were not in the capacity of being police. They were doing it as criminals effectively, even though the police were called, the police responded, the police got backup from their other Goon squad members, blah, blah, blah. I left this earlier, but as a result of the case, it was determined that for nearly 2 decades, a loose band of sheriff's deputies roamed impoverished neighbourhoods across a central Mississippi county, dishing out their own version of justice. Narcotics detectives and patrol officers, including the Goon squad, but not wholly and solely the Goon squad, barged into homes in the middle of the night, accusing people inside of dealing drugs. Then they handcuffed or held them at gunpoint and tortured them into confessing or providing information, according to dozens of people who say they endured or witnessed the assaults. There were plenty of incidents, including in 2018, when members, and when I say plenty of incidents, there were lots of them. I nearly considered doing another story on the other crimes of the Goon squad, but thought, no, I don't think I could continue with that. But yes, there are plenty of them. In 2018, when members of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department shot Robert Jones with a taser while he lay submerged in a flooded ditch, then rammed a stick down his throat until he vomited blood.
Jesus, fuck.
Or a raid in the same year when deputies choked Mitchell Hobson with a lamp cord and waterboarded him to simulate drowning, then beat him until the walls were spattered with his blood.
Oh, my God.
That raid took place at the home of Rick Loveday, who said he was dragged half naked from his bed at gunpoint before deputies jabbed a flashlight threateningly at his buckets. Sorry, his buckets.
At his buttocks.
At his buttocks, and then pummeled him relentlessly.
Sorry, I'm laughing at the inappropriate
The buckets
word.
reference. Yeah.
No one likes a flashlight waved at their buckets.
No one does.
No.
Threateningly as well. And there was a story of a
What
white
is this
bloke who
weird anal rape thing that they've got going?
it's
Just control and pain and horror. Yeah.
yeah, just humiliation, blah blah blah. And there was
Yawn.
not yawn, but just fucking stop it. And so it wasn't just African Americans that they do this to. It was also
Hispanics.
there was a white bloke who what happened to as well. So it was anyone that they thought that they could
Fair game.
lord over, I guess, and terrorise. Following the guilty pleas of the Goon squad, some community leaders were pushing for the resignation of Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey. Rankin County NAACP President Angela English said
NAACP. Yeah.
NAACP and the community feel like he's been negligent in his duties. She said Bailey was elected to serve and protect all of the people, and he let the citizens of Rankin County down.
Not just the rich white ones. Yep.
Correct. Bailey said he did not plan on resigning in the wake of the shocking charges. I'm going to stay here, he said. I'm going to fix these problems. The only thing I'm guilty of on this incident right here is trusting grown men that swore an oath to do their job correctly. I'm guilty of that, but the people of Rankin County elected me to do a job during good times and during bad times. Yes, this is a bad time. But an investigation by the New York Times and Mississippi Center for Investigative Reporting at Mississippi Today reveals a history of blatant and brutal incidents stretching back to at least 2004. Reporters examined hundreds of pages of court records and sheriff's office reports and interviewed more than 50 people who say they witnessed or experienced torture at the hands of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department. What emerged was a pattern of violence that was neither confined to a small group of deputies nor hidden from department leaders. Many of those who said they experienced violence filed lawsuits or formal complaints detailing their encounters with the department. A few said they had contacted Sheriff Bailey directly, only to be ignored. The Times in Mississippi today identified 20 deputies who were present at one or more of the incidents, many assigned to narcotics or the night patrol, but also several high-ranking officials, a former undersheriff, former detectives, and a former deputy who is now a local police chief. Among the dozens of allegations reviewed, the Times of Mississippi today were able to corroborate 17 incidents involving 22 victims based on witness interviews, medical records, photographs of injuries and other documents. In nearly half the cases, taser logs obtained from the department through a public records request helped corroborate the allegations. Electronically recorded dates and times of taser triggers lined up with witness accounts and suggested that deputies repeatedly shot people for longer than is considered safe. The case logs also suggest that the scope of the violence may extend much farther. Less than 2 weeks after the Goon squad attacked Jenkins and Edwards, Sheriff Bailey received a $21,059 pay rise, bringing his total salary to $140,059, higher than that of Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves. And in early November 2023, Business Insider reported that Sheriff Bailey was re-elected. Through the investigation of the Goon squad, a number of other cases where victims alleged that they had been beaten in custody came to light. These victims also had facial wounds in arrest photos. So I only did a quick scan of it, but I saw probably 5. But I'd reckon if I had kept going, I would have seen a whole lot more stories where people said that they were beaten by the sheriff's department, and the photos taken upon their arrest at the sheriff's, I don't know, the jail or whatever it was, showed them with severe facial injuries from the beatings that they said they got from the police. As recently as June 2024, so last month, the New York Times reported that federal authorities investigating the Goon squad have widened their investigation, seeking out more victims of brutality. So watch this space, as hopefully there may be a whole lot more to come. And that concludes my story of the Goon squad. What do you think?
I almost have no words, like it's just...
Yeah.
It's just so gross, really. Just the abject, inappropriate use of power over people to get your jollies, frankly. And if you hadn't shot that guy, what would have happened?
Correct.
When I accidentally shot his face off, I realised I'd gone too far. Not when he shot himself.
But then they did a cover-up of it.
Yeah. Well, of course I did. But, it's... when I accidentally killed him, I went too far. Too far was threatening getting the dildo out, too far was 50 miles away, guys. You too far was even entering the house without a warrant. That was too far. Weirdly, I'm all right with the state sentencing more than the federal sentencing. There was a bit of, as we said, a bit of a flipperoonies there.
Yeah, but one of them was much lower than the federal.
That was the first one, which annoyed me. But then I'm assuming that you hit the maximum of one and then you tip over into the other.
Yeah, well, they're concurrent sentences.
Exactly, right? So I've done my state sentence of 17 years and now I've got to continue the federal or vice versa. And those boys are not going to have fun in jail. So
no, not being police.
I feel like there's a bit of a deliverance coming to them. So,
well, yeah, put him in the cell with Bubba.
Well, it's going to happen, right? Or they're going to get beaten. Like some bad. Their horizons are looking very bleak. And so in some ways, it's the perfect sentence for that type of offender, for that type of crime, to end up in a social group where they have no power. The worst thing that could happen, which might happen, is some of them become, they go in and they do the classic punch the scariest looking guy there and, they try to be top dog or whatever. But I'm hoping that they end up someone's bitch in jail, that the girls visit them. Was that what they called them in Shawshank?
The sisters.
The sisters visit them.
Okay. When was sisters and come calling?
Well,
Were it the sisters?
It was something like that. But, it was just to have a taste of what they were doing to other people. And I'm not advocating for anal rape or whatever, but it's more just to get a real fright, like a serious fright, to the point where they shit themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really shocked me because normally when you hear about these things,
it's 1980 something or maybe early 90s.
It's going backwards in a number of
The
decades.
Floyd one that you talked about was quite recent.
2020
Yeah,
it was.
it's recent.
And so the other part of that I was going to say is that it's all over the news.
Mm.
This is from, the last 18 months. I knew nothing about it.
I've not heard this one.
I'm an expert on any of this, but the way it played out was like some kind of Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, that's when you
This response.
rang like that.
I'll text the Goon Squad,
And I'm thinking,
because we've got a WhatsApp group for that, and we'll all get on down and give these people a bit of what I don't know what. Oh, it's so bad. I mean, the neighbour reporting that there's 2 black blokes living with a white chick. Therefore, I better ring the cops.
Mm-hmm.
What? I don't.
The thing is, if he'd been her friend for ages and had visited lots, like the neighbour should have seen him around all the time too. Is it just everyone looks the same if you're of a certain colour that's not mine?
I mean, yeah, who knows?
Mm.
It's so, I don't know. We often say things are of their time, and this is just not.
No.
It's
our
so
time.
not of its time. It makes it even worse, I think. So it's really, it shocked me reading it. Like I said, I could have I did consider doing a separate story on it to go into more of the detail, and I thought I struggle to do the bit that I did because this stuff, when we watch things like this on I get quite angry and quite, it really, it really does upset me a bit. But then I go,
that's a fiction.
It's in the past, but also it's in the past. That stuff doesn't happen anymore, and obviously it still does.
Yeah. And to the point of the time to kill, right? You're the jury and you're sitting there and he says, close your eyes. Now I want you to picture this. I want you to picture this. You've gone over to your friend's house. She's not there, but you and your friend have been staying there anyway. You go into a house that you're allowed to be in, and suddenly 6 guys come in and they, restrain you and they threaten to rape you and they shove a dildo in your mouth and one of them shoots your friend's face off.
Yeah.
And now picture that you're white. Because that's the great speech he gives when he talks about the little girl and he talks about semen, blood soaked in their semen and their sweat and her blood and her tears and all this stuff.
Urinated on them.
And, all of that. And then they say, and he goes, now I want you to picture her being white. Some jurors are really startled by that. And it's exactly the same thing. It's like, if that were your son, if that was, it's just so wrong. So wrong. And it's just, even the perpetrators themselves, you haven't talked about it, but I would be surprised if they didn't have partners and children of their own and they thought this was okay to do this.
100%. There was a reference in there. I said it was probably comes up later, but it didn't because I must have left it out. But there was a policeman who was black from maybe another county, maybe from the same county. I can't remember, but he was harassed by the police, the white police, because those didn't want to.
You black man and their race.
Black peer kind of thing. It's just so disturbing. And I think your desire for their experience in jail to be what you described is a very good punishment for them. But I don't know, like Sheriff Bailey, if he was aware, and that's all to play out, so it's difficult to comment on it too much. But my God, if he was aware of this stuff going on and doing nothing about it, I hate to think how we would want to punish him, how we want to sentence him, because it's bad enough that you've got these
redneck dickheads.
You've got these people who are holding down what should be a respectable job, protecting the community, and going and doing exactly the opposite. But to think there's someone overseeing that who could potentially be aware and turning a blind eye at the absolute best, potentially aware and pulling the strings or whatever, rather than turning a blind eye. I mean, I hate to think. So hopefully, for his sake, that's not the case, but I guess we'll find out over the coming probably months or years.
Years, probably, yeah.
Goon Squad.
No. Oh, I know, it's ruined Spike Milligan for me. I'm not having it. I'm going back to the Goons.
Yeah. It almost seemed like it should be. When I saw Goon Squad, I was like, what is this, some kind of a comedy thing? Because
Something
I
funny.
wasn't aware of the
I hadn't heard of it either. I would have thought a bunch of idiots, not a like a
larrikins or whatever, not complete fucking racist assholes. You could also kind of sentence the Goons one back to Ku Klux Klan days.
Ku Klux Klan.
Ku Klux Klan, you could call, to live out their life in fear. But
why don't you send them to Trial by Wine World? Yes. Maybe they need to go to Peasant World. You know, maybe they just need to have all their authority, all their control stripped from them, and they're just in Peasant World being shit kickers with all of our other peasants that we've sent there. And
I mean, there's that, but there needs to be that fear of, you know.
Yeah, but there are a few serial killers in Peasant World now. I think
yes, well, I mean, that would be okay.
There, yeah.
Maybe of the police being killers, serial killers, so when they do have an issue and they need to ring for help, the people who ring for help are actually the ones who are going to kill them or
just terrify
because that
them.
must be just terrifying as a normal citizen to go, you
wouldn't call them.
Ever.
But it's like, I hate to harp on this subject, but it's very similar here. So
100%.
You know, the number of people who don't report cases because the effort to get the police to either take it seriously or do anything about it, it just seems pointless. And I can think of multiple cases recently where people I work with, I've said, have you reported that to the police? And they're like, nah, it's fine.
Oh,
like, it's not fine. Yeah. That person could have killed you. It's not fun at all.
If any of our listeners can give me an equivalent Australian story, I would happily do that because I reckon it would be hard to find. I mean, this one wasn't. This was all over the news.
I think it'll be hard to find.
It might have been there.
I don't know if this is if we are. Our journalists are finding this sort of stuff.
100%. That's what I'm saying. If anyone does know the story,
it's just it's not reported on.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Exactly that. Yeah. So, similar to this one, right? This wasn't one that you would certainly someone in Australia would genuinely know. But if there is one, let us know because I don't doubt that this stuff happens in Australia. It just shocks you that it happens at all.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, another depressing story from you. Thanks, Clarky. Appreciate it. I think you are getting I mean, I know mine was pretty awful, but, you know, yours is more depressing than mine, in my opinion. I'd let some more japes into mine.
You choose your reaction.
All right. Well, as we say every week, miss me already.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.